BB851, turn right, heading 180. Order 14 Papa, turn right 245, report localizer established 27.
An unprecedented time for the industry, a common quote found in all current press releases by airlines continuing to cut capacity across the board and also suspend services. The Air France/KLM group has now become the latest casualty, if you will, with them announcing major changes that will see them reduce capacity by up to 90% over the following months. However, as the title does indeed suggest, it does actually mean that Air France will ground all of its remaining Airbus A380s, and KLM, who just announced an early retirement for their Boeing 747s, will indeed ground all their remaining 747s due to demand reduction. At the moment, it's a 2-month scheduled grounding, if you will. However, as we know, these things can change at a moment's notice, as we've seen with the likes of Delta just in the past week. These decisions to not only ground the Airbus A380 and Boeing 747 across the two airlines, but also suspend major services, will see the airline save some US $223 million roughly for 2020, something that nowadays is nothing short of critical given the current state of the industry. In the press release, the Air France KLM group said, faced with these growing restrictions on the possibility of travelling and a strong downward trend in demand, which has resulted in a drop in traffic and sales over the last few weeks, the Air France KLM group is obliged to gradually reduce its flight activity very significantly over the next few days, with the number of available seat kilometres potentially decreasing between 70% and 90%. At this point, any carrier or group that isn't either suspending all operations or simply cutting capacity is being looked at heavily. It's a time where demand for air travel is at an all-time low, and multiple travel bans are causing airlines to shut down for, say, a fortnight or sometimes even longer. In turn, this is laying off temporarily thousands of workers across the board. We've already seen some carriers announce they will indeed be permanently getting rid of employees, like what I discussed in my most recent video covering British Airways and comments made by Alex Cruz. The uncertainty around the future of workers for these airlines is at an all-time high as groundings continue and more are found simply not needed at the airports or are being told to self-isolate. It's a concerning period as the travel industry is home to so many people's careers and livelihoods. According to Planespotters.net Fleet Area, KLM currently has 10 Boeing 747s remaining, as of late last week, that share an average age of some 21 years, while Air France currently has 9 Airbus A380s that have an average age of 9 years. Now, with the grounding of the Airbus A380s, specifically with French carrier Air France, the question has indeed been asked of whether we'll see these eventually return to the Air France fleet, following plans announced late last year that'll see the type depart steadily in the coming years. The question can be applied to not just Air France, but also multiple other airlines that have either grounded aircraft that were set for retirement or aircraft that are generally less fuel efficient than, say, others in their fleet. For instance, KLM flies the Boeing 747, as I've mentioned throughout. Well, they used to, as it's grounded now. But they also have the likes of the Boeing 787 in its fleet, and while the capacity of the jet, say, is different, the 787 is nowadays the favoured option given its fuel efficiency on specific routes and services over a quad jet. What are your thoughts on the changes coming from the Air France and KLM? Do drop them over on Twitter. As always, thanks very much for your continued support across all the content. Stay safe, and I will see you all tomorrow for more content covering the outbreak of COVID-19 in the aviation industry and more generally, the world.